Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to show you guys something and talk about something that genuinely shocked me when I saw it. And I've actually made a video about this before, maybe a year or two ago, and I had the exact opposite reaction. I roasted the hell out of the game and the devs for this, so it's really interesting to see how things have kind of done a 180. So anyways, let me explain what happened. I went into the menus and I was going through the rankings because I often do this. I check my agent level ranking. I'm right now about rank 1137 for those of you who are interested, at around shield level or whatever it's called, agent level 340, for those of you who are trying to get the different stat buffs and stuff like that. Anyways, I was here and I was bored. I was like on vacation. I think I was in the toilet or something. I wasn't bored on vacation, but you know what I mean. And I clicked on the CTP. And I was like, oh, wow, 100% of players, 100% of players have Gamora with the CTP of Rage. Now, this one probably not very well, suited to comparison or whatever, because she just came out. But then I decided to keep checking. And I looked at Star-Lord and I was like, wow, 64% of people have him with a Rage, 12% have him with an Energy. He's proc friendly. That makes sense. The Gamora one is definitely weird. As you can see, it's definitely weird. But then I was like, okay, what about Adam Warlock? Wow, 83% of players have him with a CTP of Energy. That's a really good hybrid CTP for him. And then I started going through other characters. Like, okay, what about Black Widow? Wow, like 86% of players here have her either with a Rage for ABX or an Energy for PvE content. What about Sharon? 90% have her with an Energy. What about Carnage? Rage is first, but it's only at 30%, and then Refinement is 25 and Greed is 24. This is very good. What I'm trying to say is these are very accurate CTP rankings. I don't want to put myself out of business by making this video and showing you guys and telling you guys that this is accurate, but it's really accurate. It kind of blows my mind how accurate this is, because like for someone like Carnage, it's a very complicated character, right? You've got tier 4, you've got the artifact. He's actually underrated for PvE content. He's very good. He just gets overshadowed by maybe easier to play combat types because you have to accumulate damage taken, not damage dealt. But he's not bad at all for PvE content. So it's kind of interesting to see a third of the player base having a Rage on him. But then you look, and the next 3 CTPs, which represent the remaining, basically, the remaining 65% or close to 70%. Those are all PvP CTPs. You have Egg, then Greed, then Authority. So this is a really accurate list. Let's look at Dr. Octopus, who recently got a uniform. Boom. Almost 90% have a Rage on him. So what we can glean, the information that we can take from this, look at this. PvP down the line for the first 2 for Emma. What we can take away from this information is a couple of things. One, in between videos, right? If it's been a few months since the last time I released one of those, top 10 best characters, or top 10 best characters for each CTP, you can actually refer to this. Like, not even joking, you can actually refer to this. The other thing that you can take away from this information is how the player base views characters. And that's probably a more interesting point to discuss. If you take a look here for Hulk, people have caught on to the refinement meta. The refinement's already shooting up way past Rage. So yeah, but you can see that there's clearly a leaning towards 2 things in the rankings for characters. And Jean Grey is another really good example of this. You can see 56% have her with a hybrid build, and then another 18% have her with a Rage. I was actually really surprised to see Jean Grey like this. I was expecting the PvP CTPs to be higher, but I think that this and the vast majority of other characters that have Rage at the top speaks to the following. 1, players are much more likely to build a character for PvE content, or at least build a character for hybrid PvE content, than they are strictly for PvP. That's the first thing. And then secondly, a lot more players take ABX and ABL seriously, probably because the rewards are good, and they don't want to have to worry about proccing. So that's sort of like 2 points rolled into one. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that you can clearly see where the player base is sort of pivoting or leaning towards, and that will absolutely influence future content. And it should be a really important factor for how the devs balance content, because We basically, from day one, and I hate to make this a rant about rewards, but from day one when they released ABL, we were like, wow, this is perfect. Yes, we like these rewards. Very, very good. And you can see a very clear shift to where all these characters are being released for ABX and ABL. Insight's going to be number one here. Easy guess. Tons of characters are being released for this content, and the player base is eating it up, right? The player base is adapting to these new characters. Rage is going to be number one for him. Yep. Easy clap, right? And players are sort of adapting to this situation and chasing the meta. And that's good for the game because it generates more revenue for the devs and it keeps the players occupied with something that's interesting. They need to adopt this to other game modes. They need to approach other game modes and release characters tailored to these other game modes in a way that's very obvious, right? Like, it's obvious for players in ABX and ABL. They slot in a new character with restrictions and they see, oh, score is higher, number bigger, right? Bigger number, better. Bigger number, easier to play, better. So they just need to do this for other game modes, right? Besides just ABX and ABL. Now, that may be a more difficult design decision than I'm making it sound like, but I still think that it's worth exploring. Lastly, I do want to point this one out because it did dawn on me. The fact that these lists are now much more accurate than they used to be could be a sign of a declining player base. I don't mean to get too dark here, but I do want to be honest with you. It did cross my mind, and it is certainly an answer, or it's certainly a way to interpret the data, right? We don't know. We don't have the numbers behind the scenes. I mean, we can make educated guesses about the player base and the numbers based on, how fast you rank up in PvP timeline battle, how many viewers are watching videos, not only just my content, but other content creators' content or official content, right? How many people are engaging on Twitter when they post sneak peeks, how many likes, how many comments, etc. on Facebook, right? There's tons of ways of getting a really good idea. Not an exact number, but I could say you'd get a really good idea. And it certainly dawned on me the possibility that these characters are much more accurate in these rankings now because there are fewer players, right? So they have fewer players to pull from. Therefore, they're more accurate, right? Because the players that stick around are probably going to be the ones that have more game knowledge. However, it's also possible, by the same token, that they initially released this this whatever tracking, and they made the net too wide. They were basically pulling data from too many players too often, and they realized that it would be better to pull from a smaller group of high-level players. We don't know how exactly they make these calculations, how they judge what popular is. Do they take the top 1,000 players? Do they take the top 10,000 players? You see what I'm saying? Or do they take all players, right? So another great example here is She-Hulk. Whereas most people just see She-Hulk, most people, casual players, I would say, see She-Hulk as a leadership, as a support, maybe with the artifact. They want to slap an Insight on her. Insight's way down the list at number 6 with less than 1%. Whereas Rage is way up high. And this totally supports the idea that a lot more players now are playing for ABX and playing for ABL because the rewards are consistently good and the gameplay is fun, engaging, and it's refreshing enough, right? It changes enough with the restrictions on a 2-week cycle, and it also changes enough with new characters being introduced that incrementally, power creep each other, that it keeps the game mode fresh and exciting. I think it's really good because it shows the game has multiple revenue streams outside of just World Boss, which for a long time was basically the only way the game was making money, which is kind of depressing. But I do think they need to apply this strategy with rotating restriction lists more heavily and more consistently to other content, other world battles, Shadowland, etc., etc. If you had different restrictions for Shadowland every week, that would be so exciting because it means every single experience is unique and exciting, right? So I really hope that they see this as a way of interpreting the data in a positive way. Another really interesting example here is Spider-Man. Look at that. 40% have an authority on him. By the way, the best CTP, a brilliant authority, is the best CTP for Spider-Man for PvP, and then regen, and then destruction. So again, the hybrid builds win out here. For the most part, characters, I would say, do lean towards PvE, but you do have the rare exception like Spider-Man. Despite how popular he is, the PvE builds are way down with less than 10% of, the total chunk, except for destruction, I guess. The problem here with Spider-Man is he's not very easy to play. So that's why I think a lot of people shied away from PvE with him, and he just clearly seems so dominant for PvP, whereas other characters like Jean or Thanos, they're a little bit more balanced. So you see that balance here. I'm still surprised with Thanos. I hadn't checked this ahead of time. I'm still surprised to see 60% of players have him built for PvP. That's actually surprising, especially after his Farmer Thanos. What would have been really interesting would have been to take a snapshot of what his ranking was for CTPs just before he got the Farmer Thanos uniform. That would have been really interesting. We can't do that now. We can't go back in time. But it's just a really interesting thing to keep note of. And it's nice to have this sort of content in the game at all times that players can look at. Like, look at Wolverine. Players have no idea how to build him. He sucks. He's kind of, he's like, he doesn't suck. He's like C tier now. But you can see how much division there is in the player base. There's really no consensus pick on what the best build is for him. But I also wanted to apply this looking ahead to the future by taking another look. I know we looked at it at the beginning, but taking one more look at Adam and then seeing how this changes, how much this is going to change. I'm actually going to take a screenshot right now, seeing how much this changes between now and in a few days when he gets his uniform. If he gets the Thanos treatment, whereby his new uniform is PvE focused, it'll be very interesting to see how this shifts if players revert back to the old uniform that he has now, which is currently his newest, and build him for PvP because he's tier 4, or if they lean heavily into the PvE stuff like they sort of did for Thanos for ABX, despite Adam not having as many clear-cut. He basically doesn't have any days of ABX, actually, in ABL, because he's a creature type, which makes it very, very difficult for him to... It makes it difficult for him in a lot of different ways. It also makes it hard for him to have any restrictions. I really hope they make Adam PvP. Like, if you even look at his abilities, Magic is a restriction for, I think, like one group of stages. I think for like Ultron or something. But then I think there might be Time Freeze. There might be Time Freeze. But yeah, otherwise, creature 0, and the rest we have tons of, right? Blast Mail heroes. We got plenty of those. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. I thought that was really interesting, and despite it potentially putting me out of business of a video, I thought it was nice to share the information with you guys in case you ever need to see this, because honestly, it's very accurate. Very, very. I can't speak to the other rankings. I haven't looked at the other rankings to see, but by and large, damn, this ranking is very, very accurate. Even for sort of like C tier characters here, like PvE, ABX build with the Rage, and then Regen being second means that people are using him with the Physical Reflect in PvP, right? So it's very, very interesting. Anywho, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of that. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Opening all the damn menus like an idiot.